Tuesday's attack on a Brooklyn subway train has sparked concerns about transit security in New York and other across the country. For more on this, let's bring in New York State Senator Andrew Gounardes. He's the chairman of the Committee on Budget and Revenue. Senator Gounardes, thanks so much for taking the time to talk with us. Just to start, what conversations have you had with fellow legislators in the past few days when it comes to safety in situations like these?
Great. Well, first, thank you for having me on this morning. Good morning, everyone. Obviously, what happened on Tuesday really spooked a lot of folks. I was on the subway myself about 10 minutes earlier, passing through the station when this happened. So this really affected a lot of people in a lot of different ways. I think in the days since then, there's obviously been conversations around how do we make people feel safe, but also be safe on the subways. And that's not always the same thing. There's been talks about making sure that all the security cameras in the MTA system are functioning. Yesterday, the City Council sent a letter to the MTA asking for an audit of all of its security cameras to make sure that they're working. When I hear from constituents and fellow lawmakers, it's, how do we improve the overall safety of the subway system? It's making sure that the subway platforms are well lit, that the emergency exits are properly functioning, that every station has staff in it so that you can call for help or that there's someone close by in case something happens. Things like what happened on Tuesday never happened in the subway system. I think it's important that whatever we do in response to this is not just reactive solely to what tragedy occurred, but actually what's going to help improve the overall safety of the entire system for millions of riders, daily riders.
Senator, I think even before Tuesday's attack and sort of during the pandemic, post-pandemic era, a lot of us living in New York City have had concerns on the subway and the safety. New York City Mayor Eric Adams set a plan in place in early February to increase the number of police in the subway system. The city even has its own counterterrorism department, as you know. Do you see a lack of law enforcement resources as a factor?
I don't think it's a matter of a lack of resources. With the mayor's subway action plan, there have been an increase in police officers patrolling the system. They've been, focusing on high priority stations, areas where large amounts of people congregate. But don't forget, Michelle Go, was pushed to her death on the subway platform, and there were police officers on that same platform. So we are never going to be at a place where we have a police officer every 2 feet, or in every single car, or in every single door of every single car. That's not the type of system that we want to be traveling in, or that we want to live with, or that is even reasonable or possible. I think it's a combination of targeting areas where there are lots of passengers, making sure that the NYPD is conducting regular sweeps throughout the system, but also a lot of the other things that I talked about, which is like making sure that every station has functioning lights, making sure that the elevators are properly working so that no one gets stuck, making sure the emergency exits are properly working. It's a whole combination of tools and solutions we need to be deploying. And it's not solely about money for law enforcement. We want to make sure that law enforcement is fully funded to do their job, but we have to also make sure that we are not spending money in ways that are actually not going to help improve overall public safety.
I know that some of the people injured live in your district, and you tweeted that you spoke with some of their families. What are the stories you're hearing from families, and have they said how some of the victims are doing? Thankfully, everyone is alive, which is remarkable.
It really is remarkable. It's a miracle, in fact. I've had a chance to speak to a good number of families. Like you said, many of these families come from Bay Ridge, they come from Bensonhurst, they come from Gravesend, all parts of my district. And the response so far has been a mix of shock and relief. And people feel very, very lucky that things were not worse. A number of the people who were injured have been released from the hospital. They had minor injuries, so they're back home. A few other individuals are still undergoing different surgeries. They're going to need longer rehab times. And I think folks are still in the processing stage of what happened on Tuesday. We're only a few days out, and this is never something that you anticipate having to deal with in your life. I did hear from one family that they have a 20-year-old who helped supported the family, and now that he's going to be out of commission for a few months, they're going to rely on other family members, and they're having difficulty having their other family members' employers give them flexibility to be able to be around and help, with school drop-offs and pickups and grocery shopping and things like that. So they asked if my office could help reach out and help facilitate some flexibility there for their employers, because they actually need the help. And we're going to continue to do that kind of stuff because no one should have to deal with any other obstacles or problems as they're trying to recover from what they went through just this week.
Recover not just physically, but of course, I'm sure mentally for quite a long
Thank you.
time. Senator, I just want to go back to the camera security system. State officials warned in 2018 and 2019 that the MTA's security camera system was at risk of malfunctioning. Why wasn't fixing it a priority?
That's really a question for the MTA to answer, but I will say before 2019, the state of repair in the subway system was abysmal, whether you look at the security system, whether you look at the 100-year-old signaling system, the tracks, the switches, the lack of elevators. Our system was in a complete state of disrepair. In 2019, we passed the largest capital plan in the MTA's history, more than $50 billion, meant to invest money back into repairing the physical infrastructure, including security and technology, in our subway system so that we can get the system back to a state of good repair. And then, of course, we all know the world shut down a year later with the pandemic and projects were not able to get off the ground. So I think what we're dealing with here, unfortunately, is a bad timeline of events, but certainly we want to make sure that the system is up to snuff, has functioning cameras, has a functioning security system, has functioning elevators, has stations that are well lit, all of the critical infrastructure needs that we recognized a few years ago and that we allocated money for. Now we need to make sure that that money is getting out the door as quickly and as expeditiously as possible.
All right, New York State Senator Andrew Gounardes, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.